Session of this symposium which is being held on superannuation of Professor Dilip Patil. So today's first speaker is Sridevi Masuti. She is from IIT Dharwad, and the title of the talk is The Varying Rank of Binary Binomial Forms. Over to you, Sridevi.
Thank you, Professor Indranath. It's my pleasure to speak in this occasion. Uh, I should not say it's occasion because it's very sad that Professor Patil is uh, retiring from IISc. But as Professor Harja yesterday remarked, when you get retired, you get more time for doing research. Maybe it's time to do some more research. As personally, I not interacted with Professor Patil much. It's unfortunate for me, but we have interacted during some workshops in summer, during summer or winter, where I remember whenever we get some break, he used to ask some questions, and it took some days for us to solve those questions, but it was enjoyable. And I remember in Delhi where we have workshop on government basis, so where Professor Patil was also speaker, and there along with some students, I was tutor that time. So along with some students, we used to sit and try to fill the gaps in the lectures during the night. So it was very enjoying those lectures. Um, and of course, every time, even if you learn something, there's always something new you can find in his lectures. That is what I like from his lecture. Okay, uh, today I will speak on the varying rank of binary binomial forms. So first I will introduce this topic, defining what is called as the varying rank, and then I will come to my problem. So this is my joint work with Laura Bustenga, who was that time in Barcelona doing her PhD, but right now she is a postdoc. So let me just begin. So this is topic I learned when I was in Genoa in a workshop called as Pragmatic. So where we all research scholars and some faculties meet for around 3 weeks and discuss some problems. So during that time, I had a pleasure to learn this topic from Professor Enrico Carlini, who was speaker in that school. So let me start. What is mean by varying rank? So uh, to begin with, I fix S to be polynomial ring over the field of complex numbers. So later I would like to say what happens if you change the field, the complex number by any other field. But for the moment, let me stick to complex numbers for simplicity. So suppose you take a polynomial ring in n+1 variables. Let me call this as S, and suppose I take a homogeneous polynomial of degree d in n+1 variable. Then it is a fact which is not difficult to prove, is that one can write f as a sum of these powers of linear forms, where this r is at most the dimension of the SD, the disk component of the vector space by the monomers of degree d in n+1 variables. So one can write every polynomial as a sum of powers of linear forms. Then we know that this is possible, but there could be more choices for this value of r. So this because this is one possible value where we can bound this by the dimension of the vector space SD. So what we are interested in, what is called as the rank of f, which is the least value of r, such that I can write f as a sum of powers of linear forms where the number of summands is r. So we look at all possible factorization of f at the sum of linear powers of linear forms, and we look at the least possible such r. This r we call as the rank of f. For example, let me take this example. Suppose you take for degree 2, namely xy. Okay, we can write this as this form. Easily, we can say that it's a sum of two linear forms with some scalars here. Okay, and one can easily check that it is not a power of a linear form, and hence in this case, the rank of this form xy is nothing but 2. But in general, so if you take any quadratic form of in any number of variables, sorry, this should be 0 here. Okay, so if you take any quadratic form in any number of variables, then it is not difficult to guess what is its rank, because if you have a quadratic form over a complex number, we can attach the symmetric matrix to that quadratic form, and we know we can diagonalize the symmetric matrix, and hence whatever and you can transfer the quadratic form to what is known as a diagonal form. And in that case, the rank of f is nothing but exactly the rank of the symmetric matrix A, where you can write f as x transpose Ax. So in this case, the rank of f is nothing but the rank of the matrix A. And this is somehow the sound rank. We can relate these two things. So this is simpler when you have a form of degree 2. But more generally, the problem is more involved when you have a form of any degree and any number of variables. So the series of problems which ask for information on minimal variance function for forms of degree D is usually called a varying problem for forms. And one might wonder why we are calling this as a varying problem, because many of you are familiar with the varying problem in number theory. So let me just recall and why we call this as a varying problem. So recall that Lagrange around 1570 proved that every positive integer is the sum of at most 4 squares, right? And more generally, varying mathematician varying conjectured that if you take any positive integer k, then to that integer k we can define what is there exists an integer gk depending upon k, so that every integer is a sum of at most gk kth powers of positive integers. Like if you take k equal to 2, then g of 2 is equal to 4 in this case. It's every integer the sum of at most 4 second power of positive integers. So he connected that for every integer k, such a gk which is independent of the integer exists. And it was proved by Hilbert that in fact this is indeed the case. For every integer such a gk exists for every k, and the minimum minimum value of s, so that every integer the sum of at most s k powers is called as gk, and we don't specify small gk. And there's also one called as capital gk, which is we look at not for every integer like we are looking at the small gk. We look at sufficiently large integer and see whether I can write every integer the sum of s k powers. So this is how and this problem in number theory is called as the varying problem, where we try to see what is small gk, capital gk, and try to find the bound or exact value of these values. And let me remark that even there's a nice conclusion for our Indian mathematician in this case of small GK by Balasubramanian and Pillai. The exact value of GK is known, but as far as the capital GK is concerned, the exact value is still not known. Of course, some cases we know, but not in every case. So there are many interesting questions in this area in number theory. So because of similarity between these two, we are calling this our problem in algebra also as the varying problem for forms, where we look at the form as a sum of powers of linear forms. Any questions so far? Okay. So because of this similarity of capital G here, we have analog also in the case of algebra, where we look at generic rank of a form, which is follows. So suppose we have n plus 1 variables, and we look at the form of degree D. Then we define what is called as capital G and D, analogous to the number theory case, which is called as generic rank of for given D and which is nothing but the rank of the generic degree D form in S. So here by generic degree D form, we mean that the Hilsky-Dense open subset of projective space SD, where SD is a vector space of D forms. So in this case, we are interested in what is in finding the generic rank of for given D and N. And it was a long-running open problem for what is the exact value of what is the exact value for this generic rank for given N and D. And after open for around more than 100 years, it was proved by Alexander and Haskowitz around 90s that the generic rank of a form of degree D in n plus 1 variable is this number, which is the ceiling function of n plus 2, which is D divided by n plus 1, except possibly these values. Except these values, other than that, we know what is the exact value of generic rank for given D in n plus 1 variables. But of course, if we know the generic rank, it is how does it help to find the rank of a given specific form? So it is not easy, and it's not actually true also. So if I give you some form to say what is exactly its rank, by knowing generic rank will not be useful. For example, if I take n equal to 1 year and look at and d equal to 3, then this number generic rank G to 3 is 4 plus is 4 choose 3, which is 4 divided by 2, which is nothing but 2. Right? So generic rank in this case of degree binary forms degree 3 is 2. But whereas if I give you some specific forms, the rank will be different. For example, if I take this binary form, it's easy to see that its rank is 2. It's in fact it's written in the as a sum of two linear forms x1 and x2. So its rank is clearly 2, and one can easily check that it's not a power of a linear form. And when I look at this form, which is a monomial of given specific form, and in actual applications, we are interested in finding the specific form. So what are the techniques we use in what are the techniques that are useful in finding the varying ranks? So let me recall few preliminaries on this, which are useful to guess the varying rank and to compute the varying rank. Let me recall. So suppose I fix capital T for a polynomial ring over C, which I write this as capital X0, X1, X2, Xn. So now I will make my original S ring S as a module over T, but not with the usual multiplication, but what is called as upper action, which is defined as follows. So I act this variable xi on capital X0, by derivative. That means suppose you have a monomial. Let me define only on monomials. Then it can be done for any you look at the partial of x0, x1, x2, xn, and act it on f. So this is what we mean by upper action. So we just replace the capital Xi by the partial of partial with respect to the variable xi. That is the action of t on f. So I'm just defining on the monomials, but we can do on any polynomial by linearity. So one can easily check that this makes S into a T module, but this is also what is known as in this case S is called as a divided power series ring, and in this case the action we have, the ring, the module S is far from being Noetherian, and this is the consequence of matrix duality, that a submodule, a T submodule of S is a Noetherian if and only if you look at its corresponding ideal in the ring is Artinian. So this is a far from being Noetherian module. Okay, so let me define what is meant by the ideal corresponding to submodule of in S. So given a form of degree D in S, we can define what is called as the polar ideal or F or perp ideal in T, which is defined as follows: is the set of all elements in T which kill F. This is nothing but in our usual sense annihilator of the polynomial of the ideal of the submodule generated by F. So this is easy to check that this is an ideal inside the ring T. And for example, if you take capital X1 square and act it on small x1 square x2, then what will be this one? This is nothing but you think of x1 square acting as del over del x1 square. So this is nothing but you get 2x2, right? So this is action by differentiation. And now if you look at, for example, the upper ideal of the form x0, x1, what is this? So it is not difficult to check that it is exactly equal to the ideal generated by two elements x0 square, x1 square. So it is clearly that this capital X0 square, if I act on this monomial, this is 0, right? Because there is no power of X0 square in this monomial. And similarly, X1 square kills this monomial. Is clear, but it's less clear that why these are the only this is the ideal F per. But is not difficult, and it's a consequence of matrix duality that S mod F perp is when you take the submodule generated by F, then S and look at its perp ideal S mod F perp. This is and binary forms, then and combination others, and two forms are enough to generate the idea F perp. So this is some known fact that this is a always Artinian Goldstein ring. And what is the relation between the our weighting rank and this apolarity? So this is the following result, which is the proof of which can be found in the book by Ravino and Kanu. So is the following, where geometry comes in the picture. So it says that if I have form f of degree d, and suppose it is expressed as the sum of r linear powers of linear forms, linear forms, then if and only if f perp, the perp ideal of f contains ideal of r distinct points. So this r is nothing but this r coming from in the summand. So the f can be expressed as the sum of r linear d powers of linear forms if and only if the perp ideal contains the ideal of x r distinct points, which I'm calling this as x, and these points are in the projective space over C. So this is where the geometry comes into the picture, and we of course want that these points are distinct. So if you can find the f perp ideal, and if you can find some ideal of distinct points inside that, then at least we can we can say that rank of f is at most those number of points which you have found. And conversely, also if if the weighting rank is r, then you can say that f perp should contain a r distinct point. So that's the idea. Usually, when if I want to find the weighting rank of f, I will go to f perp and I will see whether I can find where this is the ideal in the polynomial ring. And so our idea is to find some ideal of distinct points in this f perp. And so this theoretically looks simpler, but finding sometimes f perp is quite involved sometimes. In the two variables, something is very nice. We know many things, and this is classically well known by Sylvester also. So this is the following algorithm in the case of binary forms. So what is this? So there's an algorithm to find the weighting rank of f in the case of binary forms. So this is the following. Suppose you have a polynomial ring in two variables, and I take a form of degree d. Then recall that in this case, the generic rank is given by the ceiling function d plus 1 by 2. Okay, and so recall if I have a binary form, then f perp ideal because S mod f perp is a the T mod f perp is a Gorenstein ring. Then we know that it's a common intersection because we are in the binary case, and hence it is generated by two forms G1 G2, where we can also say that degree of G1 plus degree of G2 is equal to D plus 2 by looking at the minimal resolution of T mod f perp. So we know all the information about the f perp. So in this case, what is the weighting rank of f in the simplest binary form? So this is algorithm Sylvester, due to Sylvester, where he says what is the weighting rank of f in this case. So he says that we can assume that one of them have a degree less than the other. So let us assume that the degree of G1 is smaller than degree of G2. Then it says that the weighting rank of f is degree of G1 if G1 is square free. Otherwise, it is degree of G2. For example, if you look at this form, this monomial, then the perp ideal is generated by xa plus 1 by b plus 1, and here because a is at least 1, this is not free polynomial, so the rank is b plus 1. Right. So in the case of monomial, it's much easier because we can compute the perp ideal quickly. Right. And more generally, for any number of variables, the weighting rank of monomials is known due to the result by Carlini, Catalesano, and Geramita. So where they compute the varying rank of monomers in a number of variables. So what is our work? Our work is on binary binomial forms. So what is the, so before stating my result, let me just recall that. So even if you know the varying rank of monomials, it is not easy to compute the varying rank of binomials. For example, we have this lecture by Strassens, which says the following: if you have m forms in distinct set of variables, then the varying rank of the polynomial f1 plus f2 plus fm is equal to sum of the varying rank of each fi. So this is the conjecture which is still open, and recently Carlini, Catalizano, and Jaramita proved this conjecture in the case of FIs are monomials. For example, it's easy to see that rank of this is equal to 2, and if you take two distinct monomials in CXY, it is easy to see that the rank of binomial is at most the rank sum of rank of each monomial, because if write M1 as sum of linear powers of linear forms and M2 as sum of powers of linear form, then clearly we know the decomposition for M1 plus M2. But it's just that gives the bond, but not the exact value of the rank of M1 plus M2. For example, if you take this binomial form, here the rank of which monomial by the observation which we had done just before, that the rank of each monomial is 4, but the rank of binomial is 3. So the actual rank of the binomial could be very less than the rank of the individual monomial. And for example, let me give one more example. So suppose you take this binomial, okay, then the parapidial looks like this one. It is easy to see that yr plus 2 kills this binomial, but it is not easy to check that this in fact is in the parapidial. And in fact, this G1 is of smaller degree than this one, and here one can easily check that this is in fact a square free polynomial in the F-per, and hence the rank of F in this case is R plus 1. Right. So even if you know the rank of each monomial in this case, but the rank of the actual monomial is different from the rank of each monomial. And similarly, one can see also in this example where the polynomial is xy4 plus x square y cube, and one can see that the f-perp is equal to x cube plus some polynomial g2, which I don't care. It's of degree greater than 3, and here the rank of f is 4 because this is not square free, again by Sylvester's algorithm. So what is our contribution? So we have proved and computed the varying rank of any binomial form in two variables, and which looks dirty, but we know the exact formula for the rank of any binary binomial forms. And importantly, if you take any binary binomial form, the varying rank of f does not depend upon these coefficients which are here, and it is not difficult to observe also. And more importantly, our contribution is the precise formula for the varying rank of any form in two variables. So how many times how much time I left?
Your time is up, so please wrap it up in a
Okay,
minute or
okay,
so.
okay, okay. So let me just so this is our result, and let me just say what is if you change the field. So the problem is more interesting when you change the field. For example, the more interesting field is the k equal to r. In this case, we cannot write the f as a sum of powers of linear forms, but up to scalar we can do that. So we can write f as a sum of linear combination of powers of linear forms, and the rank of f, the k varying rank of f, is defined to be the minimum are possible when we write f as the sum of dth powers of dth linear combination of forms. So now in the case of k equal to r, the problem is more interesting because here where the applications to real problems comes, and in this case, even though it's interesting, the problem is more difficult because as we see, there are, for example, even the generic rank for any form of degree d or r is not known. But fortunately, the polarity lemma is still true, that if it is the sum of linear combination of R linear forms, if and only if the ideal of X, it contains the ideal of R distinct points. And here, as you see, the R distinct points, whether it exists or not, it depends upon the field which you take consideration. So that's why the rank is quite different in the case of if you change the field. For example, even for monomials, we don't know the rank of any monomial which has coefficients in reals. And let me remark that the rank of a real monomial can be very large as compared to the varying rank of corresponding monomial or complex. For example, if you look at this monomial, the varying rank we have seen for this monomial was either a plus 1 or b plus 1, depending upon which is smaller and larger. But in the case of reals, it's always a plus b, which is the degree of the polynomial, which is quite larger than the actual in the case of complex. So that's where the rank can be quite different in the case of reals. And let me remark that there is no algorithm also in this case. And our referee was asking us to see what is the rank in the case of binomial, in the case of real binary binomials, but it is not easy as we see here. And because the perp ideal is quite involved in this case. Yeah, let me stop now. Thank you for your attention, and I wish Professor Dilip Patil a very happy and healthy life ahead. Thank you. And here are some references.
Thank you, Sridevi. Questions, comments? Yes, I can see a raised hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder in her talks, in your talks, you say about the point and the R point. Is that true that you only work in the one-dimensional in the only P1, and I don't know why you use the C is Y. Is that because of the characteristic 0, or is it a closed field? Like when you use the Sylvester algorithm?
So if I understand correctly, the question is that in this, why I use the field C?
Yeah, that's what. That's still hold true for the any arbitrarily closed field.
So this apolarity lemma is true for arbitrarily algebraically closed field, and also I guess for any field, provided a characteristic of the characteristic of the field is large compared to the degree of the polynomial. This lemma is still true, but this algorithm is no longer true.
I see. So
this is true over C.
Yeah, and I have another questions. So you work on the set of point in only in P1. What happens if you go further like P2 or P3? So because here I look at I saw it here you have only 2 variables X and Y.
Yeah. So in our work we work only in the P1 because we know algorithm at least there. So in the P2 there are many works by Enrico and Oneto and so on. The problem becomes more difficult in that case because this algorithm is not there.
I see. So we cannot modify this algorithm, Sylvester algorithm for P2, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So there is no algorithm, and also because for example, if we take 3 variables, this perp ideal is, I just know it's a Goldstein ideal, but I don't know how many generators I will need for the ideal, and how that will help me to compute the waving rank. So I don't know anything.
So this is about this is still open.
Yes, like we only use this lemma to compute the waving rank. So only method which we have in many number of variables is this lemma, which is useful to compute in that case. Yeah, we don't know algorithm. That's still open.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for your question.
Okay, Nina.
My question is just this conjecture, somewhere in page 7 or 8, there's a conjecture. Yeah, this one, yeah, only. So what do we mean by distinct set of variables? Means each fi is a distinct set of variables?
Yes.
Variables
For example,
in F1 is not same as a variable of F2.
yes, exactly.
But then these examples are certainly, because this is still a conjecture, so these examples, the variables are same.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm saying that this is the simplest case, and when we look at the sum of two, I should say, any forms, even in this case, this problem is still open. So one cannot guess the rank of sum of forms by just knowing the rank of individual forms, even if they are in the distinct variables.
So can we solve this for, okay, maybe quadratic forms may be easy because the quadratic forms links it with the determinant of that symmetric matrices.
Yes.
So
Yeah, quadratic form is simple.
Quadratic form is simple. There we don't
Yes.
have.
Yeah. Exactly. Because you can look at the matrix for this quadratic form, you will have
same formula.
Yeah. Same thing will work. It is true for that, but it is open in general. It's not known.
Not even small degrees, like degree 3 or 4, they have not been settled or they have not been investigated.
I'm not sure about the smaller degree. The only case I know which is true is in the case where each of them are monomials.
How old is this conjecture? Strawson's conjecture?
Actually, let me just remark, this conjecture was not in this state in the by Strawson, because there was a conjecture in the case of tensor. So the original conjecture by Strawson was in the case of tensor, which comes in applications when they want to study machine learning and so on. So the original conjecture was for any form which may not be symmetric. But then one tried to see whether it is true for the symmetric tensor forms when that is translates in this language in this form. So maybe that conjecture is solved in the case of not symmetric tensors, the usual tensors. So that is solved, but this is not yet known. This may be around maybe last 20 years, I guess. I'm not sure, but around 20 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice talk.
Yeah, thanks.
More questions or comments? I have a couple of quick questions, Sridevi. One is that, did you say that the generic rank for monomials is also not known properly for real fields?
Generic rank of monomials.
I
What do
saw
you mean
some
generic
result
rank of
X raised to,
monomials?
I mean, see, if you just take the, didn't it say the generic rank, or what did you say? I saw a result rank of X raised to A, Y raised to B is A plus B when A and B is non-zero, right? So in general?
In general, it is not known.
Okay.
It is not known.
Okay.
Yeah. So generic rank, I mean the generic rank of over C we know that is solved by Alexandra Helskovich. But generic rank over reals we don't know. If you take any form. And for monomials, it's another column. For monomials, we know the rank of any form over complex. This is again by Carlini Geramitra and Catalizano. But for any number of variables is not known.
Not
And for the reals, we know only this case, which is solved by Boyce, Curley and Geramitra.
and this is under standard gradation, right? So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
homogeneous. Now, for example,
Yeah.
for your result on binomials, if you take the weighted gradation, is it going to be something very hard, or is it going to be almost the similar?
So weighted grading, I have not thought about.
And
Whether
this
it's
is
possible.
strictly for two variables, isn't it?
Yeah, our result was strictly for
two
two variables. Yeah, because yeah, it's for two variables. But the weighted polynomial rings, I think it is possible
Okay.
to find the at least the decomposition.
The decomposition. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Welcome.
Okay. Any other question or comments? Otherwise, we can move to the next speaker.
Hello, Indranath.
Yes, yes.
Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me?
Yes, we can.
Finally you're audible. Okay, good.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Thiru.
You have some questions, sir, for Sridevi?
No.
Okay. Okay.
no.
Then thank you, Sridevi.